So this video is not a response to, but obviously in response to, a call to action put forth by the orator formerly known as the llama with 1,000 bats in his mouth, founding member of the Frog Boys, and world-class thought masticator, Mikey Newman. A huge thank you to this dude for both the inspiration to write about a movie I tend to keep deep down in places I don't talk about at parties, and also the opportunity to make a record, like a record, alongside other stars of the Playtone galaxy. Sorry for the cavalcade of callbacks, I'm still figuring out who the hell I'm talking to, other than myself, that is. Okay, lessons animation taught us. Let's do it. It was surprisingly easy to decide where to start collecting my thoughts for this piece. When I was a kid, like so many of us, I had a bit of an obsession with a certain mouse. It wasn't totally clear what the attraction was as a very young child, as the entertainment value and potential role model status of this iconically voiced mouse was a bit non-traditional. And before I lose any viewers concerned that I'm about to preach the word of Willie and his steamboat, I'm talking about Bernard, the Ubermensch. Okay, alright, hold on. I'm coming on a little strong here. Let me get a running start at this thing. It's a bit disingenuous to say that I was obsessed with this character. It was the movie that struck me. It's been my quickest response as far back as I can remember to the question of my favorite Disney flick. Others have entered the conversation, most notably Robin Hood, Aladdin, and on those Eeyore kind of days, Fox and the Hound. But The Rescuers, yes, the first one, has officially gotten its paws into the wet cement of my personal walk of fame. And here's some reasons why. Just, come on. How many movies stored away in your conscious memory can you say make you look forward to the emotional impact of their opening credits? And how many of those had that effect on you when you were 5? This movie makes my heart swell and my face make this noise way before Carl and Ellie even meet in that opening sequence from Up. I've read a lot of reviews on this film spanning the years from its release up to now, and while being mostly lukewarm, like the sentimental equivalent to SpaghettiOs on a paper plate, there's a shockingly consistent through line to the qualifications being used as to why this film can't be considered great. The music. Which, like, okay, so there's no show-stopping, can't wait to be king diegetic set pieces, because it's not that kind of movie. And no non-diegetic, theme-defining original song worthy of award season attention like Toy Story 2's When Somebody Loved Me. So the obligatory comparisons to its surrounding brethren is, I suppose, understandable, or at least to be expected. But am I the only one driven crazy by a sea of people whose professional purpose it is to explore art and say something about it to the rest of us, consistently finding a way to collectively react in uniform waves of disinterest? Citing the music as an artistic downfall of The Rescuers simply because it's an animated Disney movie is like saying the Carpenters have less artistic merit than Guns N' Roses because they didn't stop their show in its tracks to fire up the fog machine and play Welcome to the Jungle. And if you're mad at The Rescuers for not including anything catchy in the soundtrack, then please explain to me how you got the Rescue Aid Society song out of your head after watching the movie a few times, so you can take research notes for your... R-E-S-C-U-E. Oh. You skipped the notes part? Ah. Alright. Never mind. The soundtrack of the film is emblematic of something else I love about The Rescuers. It does not stand up and demand to be noticed. Something reflected beautifully in its core cast of characters. There is no playful arrogance or charming man-childy insistence that any one character is above the established order of the world he or she lives in. It's just a small group of big-hearted tiny people who learn about a couple of shrunken-hearted giant people who kidnapped a little girl. So they decide to do the right thing. Because they could. And it's their motto. R-E-S-C-U-E, rescue the face of society. No. Bernard is a janitor who hates running red lights and doesn't think it's a good idea for Miss Bianca to waltz face first into a dangerous situation. Miss Bianca is a Hungarian who wants to waltz face first into a dangerous situation because she wants to help. And despite what this dickweed thinks, a name and place of residence is plenty to go on to begin an investigation into the whereabouts of a child. Orville is an airplane who helps because he's an airplane. And John is just a New York City cop who wants to try and make things right with his wife when some seriously ambitious and occasionally dapper bank robbers show up to crash the party. Oh shit, I'm sorry, I think I got my notes mixed up. I'm working on another video about different types of heroes and how they can affect us the younger and younger we consume them. I had Bernard filed next to John McClane, obviously, as examples of the same hero archetype designed for different age groups. You know how Die Hard basically introduced the everyman action hero to mainstream audiences and almost single-handedly ushered in a shift in the representation of masculinity in its particular genre? Yeah, that. But it's a cartoon mouse in this one. Anyway, it didn't quite take, and what a shame, blah 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 blah. Tune in next week. This video is about what this movie taught me, and I watched it first and most often well before the age of 10, so what did I take away from it back then? Well, it starts here, and here, and also here. These flourishes of romance, coupled with things like Bernard trying to continue whistling after the terror of the zoo sets in, or the way Michelle Stacy, the voice actor portraying Penny, spins a heater right under the mitt and nails me in the...
How did he get the name Tin Cup?
Yeah, because of this line right here.
Don't worry, Daddy. We'll be all right.
Wanting to constantly rewind and rewatch this movie for me was a direct response to the way these little moments struck me. A habit that's followed me well into adulthood, by the way. A more recent example being Moneyball. The interplay between the overall tone of the film and the collection of tiny moments that breathe life into it create a sense of home. An articulation of something inside of me of which I am both overtly aware and unable to grasp. Movies can have a surprising self-portrait kind of effect to where you feel like you're glimpsing into a reality that could, should, or should not be. To the point that it doesn't feel vicarious. It's not fantasy anymore. These things matter. There's a prevailing consensus among reviewers that the message of this film is size doesn't matter. That you can accomplish big things no matter how small you may be or feel. And that's certainly there and all well and good, but what I took away wasn't that your goals or desires needn't be considered relative to your perceived stature, but that the perceived stature of your goals and desires needn't be considered relative to anything. Bernard is hurled face first, well outside the perimeter of his comfort zone, into a world where he clearly feels the weight of his smallness. He agrees very quickly to take on this task because of this moment. He goes on to lead the group to defeat the giant and save the day, and yet the happiest we see him in the film is right here. I've been dancing around this point for a while, but this is the most clear avenue through which to articulate it. This movie is not what it seems. Some of its parts, laid cleanly before you, seems to add up to the lukewarm adventure movie with the romantic subplot we've seen time and time again, regardless of the intended audience, hence the critical reception being what it was and is. But the adventure exists to be the grand backdrop for the portrayal of the things that matter most to our characters. Or to put it another way, the adventure part of the film is the happily ever after. It's a sequel to its own opening scene. The will they won't they storyline is resolved with a quiet and understated yes, with this moment right here, 11 minutes into the film. The rest of the story exists as an epitaph to a life before joy. It argues that finding love is not the prize at the end of the adventure, but the call to it. And I won't go so far as to claim that this was the depth of thought I gave to the film when I was in first grade, but the unflinching way that it portrays the joy and comfort that Bernard and Bianca find in each other most definitely stuck with me and informed to a large degree the way that I approached attraction and romance, as much as those were things at that age. In short, I didn't understand the scope or size of this moment, but I knew I wanted it. A hell of a lot more than I wanted this. Or this. As I got older and consumed more and more samplings of romantic stories, the guidance counselor that was love in cinema began to confuse its messages, especially once irony and satire were introduced. But that's maybe a can of worms for another video. There's a timelessness on display here that really cannot be captured by live-action film. Animation has a unique ability to detach itself from the context of its era and evoke emotions and even lessons that transcend time. Watching Bernard find his joy in Bianca without either of them having to be anything other than who they are in their own worlds was an epiphany. As much now as it was then, if I'm being real with you. Life happens. Be yourself. Do what's right. Find your joy. Oh shit, I can't end it with that. God damn it, Mikey. Life happens. Be yourself. Do what's right. Fuck the sequel.